How you doing?
All right, I think we're on for most people. Apologies for that. And I'm glad we're still on. So Hashir, sorry, if you want to continue what you were saying.
Yeah, so I'll just restart with the third point, which is that, yeah, so when I was thinking about choosing between Middlebury and some other colleges, universities that were in urban settings, I was a bit hesitant about Middlebury because of its rural setting and because a lot of people would tell me that it's in the middle of nowhere. But I remember talking to a Middlebury alum who said that at Middlebury you get to shape your own experience. The community will decide what it wants to do from week to week, from semester to semester. And I noticed that when I was at Middlebury, because my friends from larger universities, they would just often talk about what their universities did, whereas at Middlebury we would often talk about the opportunities, the events, and the activities that we as students would want to do, and then go out and take the initiative to put them together for the larger community. So just to give you an example, for example, I was part of the Muslim Student Association as a practicing Muslim. I wasn't really into the social scene when I got to Middlebury. And so we as a club created an alternative social space. So instead of, deciding between whether to, sit in the library and do your homework, or maybe just sit in your dorm room and maybe watch Netflix, or, going to a party, we created an alternative social space. For example, like chai and dessert nights, where we would bring students together who were, interested in just watching a movie or just doing a puzzle, and we would do it over having a cup of chai and dessert. For example, I know there are some folks here on this webinar from the Middle East. You could start your own initiative, something like al-qahwa wal-halawayat, right? Ash-shai wal-halawayat, right? So the opportunities are numerous for you to create the kind of activities you want to be engaged in. One of my friends, was interested in testing an idea that she had about starting a mac and cheese food truck. And she started the idea at Middlebury, piloted it, and, would take orders during the weekends from people, who were interested, who wanted food at night. So at a place like Middlebury, at small liberal arts colleges, you have numerous opportunities to create the community you want. And they have, many of these colleges do have the resources, for you to give you the funding to go out and do those things. So that's what I'll say on that question. Yeah, I think we don't have Niall here. Or...
No, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Dropped out for a little bit. So the second question's got to do with a topic that you've touched on already, and that's research at small liberal arts colleges. So you mentioned a couple of independent studies that you worked with directly with the professor on, as well as this longer research project, a 5-year research project. So what sets liberal arts colleges apart when it comes to opportunities for research, the kinds of research that you get to do, but also the support that you get from faculty?
Yes, I think it speaks to, one of to my first point when answering the last question, is that because of the smaller setting, it becomes easier to discuss the research questions that you're interested in with the professor, and the professors are also open to talking, about their research projects. At a bigger university, you might not get exposure to a professor until your sophomore or junior year, when you're taking a seminar. And when you'll have direct contact with the professor. Sometimes, when you start out at a bigger university, you will be taking intro classes where there might be anywhere from 100 to 150 students. The professor comes in, maybe lectures for 20 to 30 minutes, and then hands it off to his grad students or TAs. But that's not the case at Middlebury or small liberal arts colleges. Yeah, you really are learning from the professor directly. You really are discussing the text, the problem sets that you're doing with the professor. So I think that opens up a lot of opportunities to discuss, your interests with them, and potentially open up doors for, research, research collaboration, by being a research assistant or by potentially doing independent studies. And I would also say that, for example, the 5-year research project that I did, part of some of the data that we used, I ended up using it for my senior thesis. And there was a fellowship at Middlebury called Kellogg Fellowship. It was $5,000. You could apply for it, and if you got it for the summer, you would just get that money and you could stay on campus and do research and collaborate with your professor, and you and the professor decide how often you would meet to discuss any roadblocks that you might have hit or where you might need guidance. And that was, I spent that summer at Middlebury and had the opportunity to just work on my senior thesis and have access to the professor and speak with him about my ideas and how I could expand the project. And yeah, so I think because of the smaller setting, it becomes easier to collaborate with the professor and to be able to work with the professor one-on-one. And just one other thing that I would say is that as a first gen student, when I got to Middlebury, I felt the imposter syndrome. I kept asking myself the question, am I supposed to be here? Did they make a mistake? If they accept you, they haven't made a mistake. But I would say that the ability to work with professors one-on-one and to have that small setting at the college really helped me feel confident in how my 4 years ended up being at Middlebury. Like the first year, like there were some challenges, but I learned a lot. And then from there, I felt like the sophomore, junior, and senior year went really smoothly. And I think part of it was being at a small liberal arts college and being able to have access to professors.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing about your experiences. I think this has been really super helpful to get both the admissions perspective, but also the student perspective. And I know this time period in the world is very uncertain with so much shifting. And so there have been a few questions throughout this webinar about, considering the US as a whole. And I'm especially curious for the alum, if you were thinking about it, if you were in your kind of younger siblings roles, like what would you be thinking in that decision? Why the US, and is the US where you should go? And at what point, in your education, whether it be in undergrad or graduate school, would you be considering the US? What are the benefits of that?
Yeah, I think I can go first. In terms of younger siblings, and considering that my younger sibling is at CMC as well. So I think he absolutely loves it, and he's just finishing his sophomore year there, or just finished his sophomore year there. And I think that the one thing that I learned studying in the UK after studying in the US was that the kind of education that you get at a liberal arts college in the US, you're not going to get anywhere else. And for that experience, I'm really thankful, because it sets you up to do a lot of things. And it sets you up to generally succeed in whatever sphere of life that you choose to succeed in, whether that's a job or whether that's graduate school or whether that's taking a year off and doing some on-ground nonprofit volunteer work, whatever you choose to do. I have friends doing all of those different things right now, and that it gives you kind of this holistic experience that you really, really don't get anywhere else. So after having gone to school in India for high school, and then also going to Costa Rica and finishing my high school there, being in the US and then studying in London, I've had kind of this variety of educational experiences everywhere. And I'd say my 4 years at CMC really solidified a lot of things for me and helped me kind of succeed in terms of even getting a job in like the situation right now. So I'd say that makes it unique, definitely.
Thank you. Any other perspectives? Similar ones or different?
I think this is definitely a difficult situation for those trying to decide whether to start school now, given that we're in such uncertain circumstances. I personally got a lot out of in person, that network, that community, by being on campus. So I don't know what I would do if I were starting in the fall. I I wouldn't give up my liberal arts, the experience that I had at Davidson for anything. I think who I am today, I owe to that experience in so many shapes and forms. But I don't know how different that experience would have been had it not been on campus. So maybe I would defer a little bit, but that's just because I value that in person, that being in the classroom with my professors, learning from my peers, that question and answer back and forth. That to me was very critical in my learning.
Sure. I don't know if any of the admissions officers want to weigh in a little bit about, kind of updates from your institutions and how you plan on handling kind of that in-person versus online feel.
I can go.
Go.
So, I mean, absolutely. Like, I think one of the hallmarks of a liberal arts college is this community, right? It's being in community with one another. And a big part of that is, of course, physical community, and being able to kind of engage with your peers outside of the classroom, in the hallways, in the dining hall, and all of that. I think from my perspective and from what I've seen, the educational part, the classroom part, it has not suffered at all at a liberal arts college. Our faculty were quick, and I can say this confidently about Davidson faculty, Middlebury faculty as well, but our faculty were quick to change, were quick to shift, still have the time to have really personal and close connections with their students. I live next to all these different faculty here, and we talk quite often. And I was talking to one of the econ faculty, Laura Grant, just down the street, and she was talking about, yeah, she has now like all of these Zoom calls for students around the world, on all these different time zones, but she's still really able to connect with them and have really close relationships with her students, and continue on with a lot of the research with her students that she's doing. So I think at a liberal arts college, in fact, probably is the best set up to deal with something like this, with this global pandemic and having to go online for classes.
Wonderful. And I know that quite a few people are anxious about kind of new policies or requirements. And so if each of you, and we are running tight on time, so if each of the admissions officers want to give a quick update on any new procedures or requirements and how that might impact your review, that would be great.
Start. At Davidson, we will be test optional for the next 3 cycles, and that means ACT or SAT. That means we're going to be looking more closely at your academic performance throughout high school. We'll be looking closely at your writing and how you share with us who you are. At liberal arts colleges, the first question is, will you be successful in our classrooms? The second is, who are you as a human being? So how do you share your story through writing? Initial view is also a great way to share your story and who you are as a human being, especially without the testing component. We really are trying to get to know who you are as a human being and what you'll bring to our communities, and how you'll benefit from that place as well. As each alumni had shared with you, it has shaped their lives in so many different ways. So we are looking for that in your application. The new policy is test optional for SAT, ACT, SAT. We will still require demonstrated proficiency in English if you are not studying in an English speaking environment or English environment for all years of high school.
Very similar. I won't repeat everything that Kehlani said, but we are also now test optional. Testing for all our 3 institutions, when even prior to being test optional, was always a small portion of the overall assessment. We're fortunate enough to work at colleges that really are able to devote a lot of time and attention to understanding each and every single application. I mean that honestly, to our fullest potential, before we render a decision. So that will continue to be the case now that we are also test optional. Yeah, but that's really, that's the only change that in terms of our process that we're experiencing.
Yeah, and Claremont McKenna is also test optional. Again, holistic review. We're looking for students that are good matches for us and what we do here. We do highly encourage interviews at CMC. And so you can do an interview with us individually, but also you should really think about the initial view, because you can actually send that to many different schools. And so you can kill kind of one bird, or 2 birds, or 5 birds, or 12 birds, or however many birds you're sending out applications to, with just one stone. So you can think about those different options. But a big part of admitting students to liberal arts colleges is admitting the person. And so getting to know you as a person is a big part of that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I know we had a little blip in the technically, but I'm going to be able to combine the videos. So if your friends were not able to get on, please encourage them to watch the video that we'll post probably tomorrow. Feel free to please reach out to any of us. We would love to continue the dialogue and the conversation. I really want to say a special thank you to the alum for joining us, taking time out of your busy schedules to share about your experiences. That was really special, and I think really gives another perspective to families as they're considering their next plans. And we all just want to say, we know it's an uncertain time, and we're all here for you. We really believe in international education. We believe in international student mobility. That's like our jobs. So we just want to know that we're here for you. So please feel free to reach out. And in the meantime, enjoy your evening and your summer. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks, and see you next Tuesday.
Thanks.
Bye.